Hey everyone, today Moses talks about why God chose Israel. For you are a people holy to Yahweh your God. Yahweh your God has chosen you out of all the peoples on the earth to be his people, his treasured possession. It is not because you are greater than any other people that Yahweh set his heart on you and chose you. In fact, you were the least of all peoples. It was because Yahweh loved you and kept the oath that he swore to your ancestors, that Yahweh brought you out with a mighty hand and redeemed you from the house of slavery, from the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. Know then that Yahweh your God is God, the faithful God who keeps loyal covenant love for those who love him and keep his commandments to 1,000 generations, and who repays personally those who hate him. He will not be slow to repay personally those who hate him. Therefore, you must carefully keep the commandment, the decrees and laws that I'm commanding you today. Remember the feeling of being picked last for gym class? I know I did. I know I'm tall and stuff, but I'm not athletic in hardly any ways. Right? That feeling of nobody wants you, that you feel rejected, it's the worst. But on the other side, how does it feel when you are chosen by someone? Right? At first, it feels like, wow, I'm not worthless. But then over time, maybe you start to feel like, wow, I'm actually more worthy than other people. Those people are unworthy. I'm superior. See, this is a dynamic that happened with Israel, and also the dynamic that happens with the church. We start to think that, because we are chosen, God likes us better. God's playing favorites, and we're the favorites. And so Moses here is making it very clear to Israel, you are not special. Right? The reason God chose you is not because you're better or bigger or greater than anyone else. In fact, you're kind of less than everyone else. And this is a consistent thing that we see through Scripture in the Old and New Testaments, that God always is choosing those who don't have natural strength, who seem to have nothing to offer, so that God can show that God's strength is the one that's making people great. What we also see here is the idea that God's faithfulness outweighs our unfaithfulness. If you know much about Israel's story, you know that often they were not faithful, and yet God didn't give up on them. That's how I make sense of what he's saying here about the personal repayment versus the faithfulness to 1,000 generations, right? The faithfulness is so much bigger than the repayment. We should see that as central to God's character, which is what he says over and over. God is loyal, faithful, keeps covenant love. And so this choosing of us is not about us. It's about them. Again, this is an idea that's in the New Testament. It gets reapplied to the church. So in 1 Peter, he says, you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people who are God's own possession, so that you may proclaim the wonderful acts of the one who called you out of darkness into his amazing light. To use some fancy biblical words, election is not about salvation, it's about vocation. The reason God chooses anyone is not about the one that's chosen, it's about who they can bless. God focuses on the one for the sake of the many. So if we think of ourselves as chosen, we need to realize that's why. There's only one God, then that God has to be for everyone. So, how can we tell that God's acts of love and mercy?